Let's welcome on stage Sylvie Saget, a PhD student in computational linguistics at the University of Gothenburg. Background as a research engineer in conversational AI innovation consultant also. And her research focuses on the modeling of reasoning and dialogue, and involves philosophy of mind, logics, and psychology. Then we welcome on stage Aron Lagerberg, principal NLP investigator from Recorded Future. Aron holds a doctoral degree in mathematics, and he has been actively involved in the AI industry across various domains, including legal technology, biomedicine, and threat intelligence. Then we have Francisca that I already introduced to the people in this track previously, who co-leads the Natural Language Understanding Initiative at AI Sweden. And she's a trained historian and an expert at pulling together innovation projects with special attention to inclusion. And finally, we have Rebecca Oskarsson, who is CTO at Pirr, a generative AI app for romance and erotic fantasies. She's specializing in data engineering, analytics, and machine learning, and has more than 4 years of experience in improving data analytics. Thank you for being here with me, with us. So, yes, please. Okay. So this has been a very eventful month, all right? We are living in a moment in which we are really pushing the boundaries of what generative AI is capable of. And while we can see the innovations that can improve the tools for our everyday life in crucial fields as well, these advancements are going at a very fast pace, according to many. So my first question is for Sylvie. If you add to this fast pace the fact that academia in general might not have the resources to create, train, or run these models, is science, according to your opinion, having trouble catching up or keeping up?
I will surprise you because my position is different. You know, there is, I would say, two parts in the community: the one who are working and try to enhance this model, but unfortunately, I'm not part of it. So I cannot really address this question. For me, I'm part of this academic community who is considering that our work is also to push new kind of paradigm that will be able either to include like this kind of technology, but in a more complex architecture, or to push completely new paradigm. So unfortunately, I cannot, I'm not concerned by trying to improve such a techniques. But I do agree that, resources is super important, but for that, from that perspective, I think the other speakers are better than me to answer that question.
Right. I could totally ask a question about the fast pace to everybody, but I actually have some tailored questions, and feel free to touch upon this point, which is very controversial, if you think so. Aron, I wanted to ask you, these models display remarkable zero-shot capabilities, and this is what people see when they use ChatGPT. It's ready. But for downstream tasks, does it actually take still very intense human input to drive the models? So it looks like filtering and data annotation is still a very important step. Do you have any insight in this?
Yes, I mean, I think these models they are so capable right now, so you would think that zero-shot might be all you need. But I think, and also looking at the literature coming out now, it seems that, you have seen things like these will replace crowdsourced annotators, for instance, for tasks because they are slightly better sometimes. But I think for these complex human tasks where annotation is really needed, you will never be able to do that with these kinds of models. So you still need that human input to actually discern the signal that you're after. But having said that, I do still think that these models can be very helpful in creating the final data set, but I still believe that humans will always be part of that equation.
I agree. But sorry, not following the order here, but Rebecca, I am very interested in this specifically. When Pirr was born, the advancement in generative AI was already impressive, but not to this extent, right? So how has the most recent technology impacted the way your company operates? And what adjustments did you need to make?
Very, very interesting question. So there's two main points here. One is the size of these models, because obviously we are trying to work with these in a production environment. We need them to work on inference, right? That's where we are using them. And we are seeing that the large cloud vendors, I mean, they are doing a good job in keeping up, but they are not really there either. So that's what's very interesting now, to see if we're challenging them on how can we make this financially viable? How can we keep these models running, being fast enough for the users? Because the users today, they are very picky and demand a lot from any software that they're using. And also the finance aspect, it cannot be too expensive. And then also the quality. We cannot use a too small model, because then the users, are not going to use our product. So that's one thing. And then speaking of users, that's the next step, because what we see is very interesting with the ChatGPT. After the launch of ChatGPT, you see a different way people are interacting with AI. Now people sort of have learned this new way, instructing the AI. So they are trying to do that with our AI. But our AI is not trained on using instructions today, so it's not really answering in the same way than the way that the user expects. So that's a couple of the challenges that we see with this fast-paced development.
Thank you. And I think many people can relate. Francisca, I have a question for you specifically. But I got a feeling already from your talk, but I wanted to ask you, so these models of increasing complexity without how can I say, they are lacking interpretability, right? I want to give another perspective, actually. So how do we overcome the existence of a divide between those who have the resources and the expertise, and those who lack this access? Mm-hmm. And also, how can do you think there is a way for us to ensure that the benefits of generative AI are distributed in an equal way?
Good question. I think the question of equality is really central when we also relating to your first question about what happens when commercial actors drive the development and when academia has not the resources to keep pace, because in the end it comes down to questions of, for example, equality. So if I understand your question correctly, I think what we need to look at is who benefits from these systems actually, and who's kind of left behind. This comes also to distribution of knowledge of how these systems work. We see now with these generative systems that it has become so incredibly easy within hours to build an application on top, which really is accelerating the use of these systems. But I think there's also a danger in the easiness of how these systems can be quickly adapted, because you no longer need to, or it seems you no longer need to understand the workings of these systems. And as we have seen in other talks already, it is actually important to understand the limitations of these models when you build concrete applications. So I think a lot of our responsibility is now to educate, to have disclaimers in these systems that actually show to the user this is what's happening behind the curtain. And we also should not forget that it's not necessarily society only that needs to adapt to the new technology. This is a very deterministic view of technology, I think, that it's society that needs to learn and adapt, but also we need to learn from other disciplines and from society what they actually want to do with this technology and to adapt our systems and the ways we work to society and to societal needs.
Thank you. Actually, I can see Sylvie nodding during.
Yeah, but I think we can also have a complementary perspective, meaning that who is telling that we are going too fast? Companies. But there is also dark points that will, from my point of view, slow down the progress, meaning that there are really worrying way that this technology has been developed regarding copyright, security, and so on, and lying regarding their capacities. And what is specific in this huge moment is that they have provided, that is super cool, the direct access to generative. So it's beyond education, it's also the best way for a normal user to figure out how the system works, because people really speedily understand the reality because they interact directly, and it was not really the case before. So I would say this is, for me, optimistic, because we will have the balance, the knowledge of the society, the lie, which is from a professional point of view good, because we need to be able to be honest regarding the capacity, which is huge, no problem, but with limitation. And if you want to build trust with your user, it's the only way to go, from my point of view.
Thank you. Yes.
Can I comment on that? Because one thought that I had when you were talking about like how what the users are doing, and I think we have a huge chance here right now. Like this is, as you said, like for the first time the public starts interacting with these systems and starts to actually build an understanding. And what I've seen, for example, on LinkedIn are the many surprised reactions. Oh my God, this model has a bias. If I ask for pictures of doctors, I only get male pictures. If I ask the model what kind of jobs women can have, I only get the cliché jobs. And if you would ask any gender studies researcher or historian, nothing of this comes as a surprise. But now suddenly it becomes so obvious what is wrong in our society and that we are not an equal society in many regards. So I see a huge chance in these generative systems to finally create a huge debate in our society about what kind of society do we want to become? What is it that we want to overcome? So I think bias per se, as I said earlier, is nothing bad per se if we look at it in the right context.
Thank you, Francie. I have a question for Aron, and it's in regards to the technical report of GPT-4, came out not long ago. It states like this: given both the competitive landscape and the safety implications of large-scale models like GPT-4, this report contains no further details about the architecture, including model size, hardware, training, compute datasets, construction, training method, or similar. Okay, so let's say that
But it was very long.
it was very, very long. We don't know the performance of Swedish in that report. Anyway, let's say that you're a developer who wants to employ this technology, but you have little or no access at all to the underlying models. Does this matter at all? Does this affect the use or impact at all of the downstream tasks?
Yes, of course it does. I mean, since you don't know, it's basically just a black box that you're using. You will have very hard to anticipate any downstream phenomena that might occur that you did not anticipate when launching this. So that I see as a big risk in just deploying this, especially now when things like the plugins are coming out. It's so easy to deploy these models. the understanding what they might do, since you don't know the underlying structure and data, becomes much, much harder. So definitely it comes with risks in that regard. And also as an NLP practitioner, I mean, just using these models to even if it's just using these to sort of distill into other models, it becomes very hard to understand any biases from upstream, like what has gone into my model, and can I sort of backtrack the problems I see in my performance to that model. That sort of tie has been severed completely, almost.
What would you have liked to see in that technical report? Literally everything.
Yeah,
possibly.
I mean, data would be a good start, I think. Probably for me, the most important is the data. What was it trained on?
Okay. Yes, I agree. I'll move on to another topic. Rebecca, I would like to ask you, so generative AI has the potential to revolutionize also the creative industries. And could you tell me what are some potential concerns associated with using AI to generate content like music, art, and writing? And also, please, if you could also let me know what are the new opportunities that come with this? What are the new jobs maybe even on the markets? Or if we can use it to augment human creativity?
Yeah, I mean, sort of already answered that question, and you, Francisca, got the question earlier just now before the discussion. And if you look at the technology, now I'm borrowing your example that you took because it was really good example. When the camera came and you could take photos, then people were arguing that, oh no, but then artists will go out of work because we don't need them anymore because we can just take a picture. But instead you saw new opportunities. You could create art with the cameras, with photography, and the artists were maybe even more appreciated for their work, because then you had to not only just take what was in front of you and put it on paper, but you actually could see that you're interpreting something as well as a human being, and that is just with other professions like doctors. It's not about removing the profession doctor, but you're actually removing the tedious task that takes up time from actually talking to the patient. So let's say that you have the skin cancer example where AI is very good at identifying whether it's skin cancer or not. Then you're actually just removing the tedious task from the doctor, and instead that doctor can spend time in actually talking to the patient and understanding and do that what humans do best, that machines cannot do today. And I think that's the same thing with the creative professions as well, where you can all of a sudden spend not maybe time on actually learning to maybe paint what you're imagining, but you can actually, for someone who is not good at that particular task, you can actually use your words instead, or talking into the machine. So I mean, that's also a huge opportunity for making art more equal, because someone who may be physically not able to use your hands or so, you can use your voice or having someone type in the words, and so that's just huge opportunities right there.
Thank you so much also for offering this last perspective that I really appreciate. I have an open question up for grabs. I'm trying to touch on many points discussed in the open letter from Future of Life without mentioning the letter, but now I mentioned it anyway. There is one point that I really would love to hear your opinion about, which is also reliability or reliable information, let's say factuality. So in the current state of technology, do you think we have the tools to make sure that from this huge amount of data from the web that we train our models on, we can operate within factuality or give an output which is factual enough?
It's not a question of data
It's not a question
of
data.
quantity
Okay.
of data. I'm sorry, we will never be able to guarantee factuality. I'm sorry.
Mm. No, I love strong opinions. Please, next, do we have other opinions?
Yeah, I mean, I don't think there are any mechanisms for making sure that this is factual right now. I mean, it's just out there. You have to make your own opinion about it. But I think it will come. I think we will see a host of tools for making sure that it is factual, or measure the factuality of.
Do you think
the
that's
content.
one of the most urgent next steps, or do you think there are more important things to fix before that?
Yeah, so well, it's an important thing for I think, but I think there are other more pressing matters actually. I mean, we know so little about how this will impact our society right now, and I don't think factual. I mean, that has been a problem with the internet basically. I mean, it's not a new problem that there are things out there that are not factual. So I think there are more concerning things, at least in my book.
I agree, and I think if we look at like these systems are not from the beginning not trained to be factual, but to represent language as the model has seen during the data during the training, and I think again this is a chance for society now to actually strengthen our abilities in source criticism, for example. So if we just think about what is knowledge, what are facts, who determines what a fact is and what not. I mean, this is nothing that's naturally given, but something that we as societies agree upon. We have standards in science and so on. And very concretely, I mean, take knowledge from a field of science where knowledge is published in a few articles that are maybe behind a paywall. These articles will not become part of training data, but very polarized opinions may be overrepresented in the training data. So there are huge risks, I think, with the current data collection practices that we have knowledge that is not in line with what actual scientific knowledge is, for example. And as you said, apparently there are no mechanisms yet to control this.
Yeah, but
Yes,
we
Sylvie.
can also take, I would say, a business product perspective. So you have a system and you have a user. So full automation is not possible because of this factual thing, roughly speaking. But it means that the responsibility of the factuality is in the hand of the user. So it means that the system can only handle assistive tasks, like a first draft for a creative thing. But at the end, if we talk about test, the knowledge is in the end, has to be in the end of the user. So if we can address business strategy, what kind of product we can do with this kind of capacity, not fully automation, only assistive task. That's it.
May I just note as well? I mean, if these models would have come sort of before the internet, it's so hard to imagine, right? Because we don't need the internet for the models. But we already have all of these sources that are considered non-factual or fake news or whatever, not reliable, and now AI is maybe a part of that. And so I would argue that we as a community help determine these factual, that's where we need it. I mean, when I grew up, and that's probably can see I'm not that old, I'm pretty young, so it's not that long time ago where Wikipedia was not considered a reliable source, and of course it's debatable today as well, but thanks to a huge community who are always going in there and like finding these, this is a mistake, this is wrong, we are in this together and we're actually helping out. And it's been studies showing that kids growing up today are a lot better at these, checking their sources than grown-ups are today. So, I mean, it would have been different if these models would have come a long time ago when you would actually trust what was printed. And the same thing with all magazines today, whatever you're reading, it's not just someone who has written it and put it there. You have to be a trusted source. You need all these layers of reading. And that's the same with AI. If AI is producing something and you just put it out there, no one's hopefully today no one's going to really believe that unless someone has read it and approved it and done all those steps. So in a way, we do have those filters, I would argue.
Thank you. So we actually have very few minutes left, and I really cannot think of ending a panel discussion on generative AI without asking. AGI, artificial general intelligence. So when we look at the output of these models, we still seem to oscillate. We're really, really good. We know they're really, really good. We know that. But we still seem to oscillate a bit from moments of excellence and brilliance, right, to moments of failure compared to human performance. So, full automation of all cognitive tasks. Is it closed? Is it already here? Please, let me know what you think.
We're not there yet.
Okay,
No.
we're not there yet.
No, I'd say, yeah.
I would say, why do we ask the question? Because if we look back in history in the 60s, we were super excited when Weizenbaum had ELIZA, and we were like, wow, we are so close now. That's more than 50 years ago. In, I think, 2000, Joy published a manifest, not very unlike to the manifesto published last week, where he also said, oh my God, we're going to destroy ourselves. And I mean, we're doing that with the climate change and everything. But I really do think we should focus on more pressing questions than AGI.
Everybody nods, everybody agrees. I think we are... I really thank you all for your insight. Please, let's give a big applause to our panelists.